Invitational top 8 competitor, Chi-Hoi Yim. He's on Blue-White-Red Miracles. He's going to try his hand at Blue-Green Infect, this time in the hands of Todd Anderson. And this is more or less the matchup we saw play out in the finals between Reed and Tom Ross. Both of them very skilled pilots of their decks as well. We'll see if these guys have had a chance to learn from that match and maybe figure out what they're trying to do.
Yeah, Todd being on the play is certainly going to help him here.
Yeah, he starts out a Noble Hierarch. One of the things I really like about the deck is despite the fact that it's Infect and it's all about Infect creatures, I'm of the opinion that its best draws are the ones that start on Noble Hierarch, which is amusingly not a creature with Infect.
Right, but it pumps your creatures with Infect. It's an additional mana source. Noble Hierarch just ends up doing a lot for the deck, allowing you to pay for things like Daze and Spell Pierce while also adding to your clock.
And we see Blighted Agent, so now we actually do have an Infect creature. And he did also play Pendelhaven that turn, so a lot of weapons being assembled by Todd here.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 power worth of Infect coming at Chi-Hoi per turn. And that might not seem like a quick clock, right? But that's basically 4 attacks, so that's kind of like a 5 power creature.
Right, so I mean, and that's the synergy part that's really good in this Infect deck. You know, now we see he plays another Noble Hierarch. So this is pumps the Blighted Agent with Pendelhaven, possibly exalts it twice. This is 4 Infect we're talking about. It's like it's the equivalent of 8 damage.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, especially since Chi-Hoi missed his second land drop. Like, he's super far behind right now.
And Chi-Hoi just with nothing goes ahead and scoops here, and Todd's going to grab the first game.
Yeah, I mean, Chi-Hoi had a Swords to Plowshares and Sensei's Divining Top, so I totally understand keeping a hand like that, but Todd even just doing things the normal way, you know, like no pump spell really required. Like, he did have the Vines of the Vastwood for the kill next turn. Chi-Hoi didn't know that, but he knew that he was basically just dead to a raw Blighted Agent.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a situation where I think, yeah, in fact, produced a really powerful draw there, but I think the story of that game is Chi-Hoi kept a borderline hand, which was risky but had a high reward. He didn't hit the risk, and most any deck should be able to roll over that draw.
Yeah.
All right, but we get to play out 2 games, plenty of time. You might actually see a Miracles match go to a game 3. Let's look at their sideboards, though. What can they do in this situation? I'm going to start with Chi-Hoi Yim. He has 14 different cards in his 15-card sideboard. Excellent. And one thing that I actually see added, and here's a card I'm pretty excited about that I don't usually see in the Miracle sideboard. I'm wondering if this is a reaction to Infect, because he has an Is It Staticaster in his sideboard.
I think Chi-Hoi might have played that at the Invitational. I see that popping up every once in a while, you know?
I mean, that card, that's got to be difficult for Blue-Green Infect, I would think.
Certainly. I think once it's in play, that's probably game. Like, maybe you can fight through it a few turns in a row with stuff like Pendelhaven and using, like, pump spells and stuff like that, but going long, Is It Staticaster is going to win.
Yeah, you can overload Pendelhaven, for example, using the end step. I mean, it kills all of Todd's creatures, right?
Yes.
So now it's Pendelhavens or pump spells to save all your creatures.
Yeah, or, you know, if you have multiple creatures that don't have the same name, so like Glistener Elf, Blighted Agent, Inkmoth Nexus, and you're crashing in with all of those, like, what does Chi-Hoi really do there?
Yeah.
But that card is certainly tough to beat. On Todd's side, he has his sideboard's kind of all over the place too, but I like it. It gives him a wide variety of cards that he can sideboard in a bunch of different matchups. So he has 2 Blue Elemental Blast, 2 Submerge, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Crossing Grip, and then 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Bajuka Bog, 1 Karakas, 1 Spellskite, 1 Sylvan Library, 1 Force of Will, 1 Nature's Claim. So he has a lot of options here. I know that he was boarding in Force of Will, Corrosive Grip, and Sylvan Library against these Miracle decks, and I'm not sure of anything else past that. Like, Flusterstorm is okay if you're trying to go for the quick kill or stop your opponent from going for a quick kill, but it's not super great against Miracles, especially if you expect the game to go long. And then there are things like Spellskite that maybe could come in because they protect you from Swords to Plowshares, but it kind of just gets swept up in a Terminus.
How much, if you're Todd, do you need to have blue spells to fight over the possibility of a turn 2 counterbalance?
I mean, counterbalances can be pretty important, but you can also do what you did in game 1, where you just stick a threat and have a bunch of Exalted Triggers or Pendelhaven and actually just beat them down that way. Invigorate costs 3 mana, so it is tough to actually counterbalance, but counterbalance certainly does a number on a lot of the spells on the deck. Like all the cheap cantrips, Vines of the Vastwood, some of the creatures if counterbalance comes down before that. So I think it is an important card in the matchup, but sometimes it just doesn't matter.
We did see to that effect, he does have a pair of Corrosive Grips.
Right.
And we're going to be underway here with game 2. very quickly. We had game one, not really, kind of a non-starter. Getting a chance to look at Todd's hand. Looks like he's kept, it's on a single land hand. It looks like just a Pendelhaven, but he has a pair of Glistener Elves. So I'll start out with one of those, and then a slew of blue spells to go with it. And in fact, I would mention, doesn't need too many lands here to operate.
No, certainly not. But given Todd's hand, he has a Daze, so he would like an island. He would also like an island to cast that Brainstorm. He would like a forest to be able to play Invigorate. You know, so like Pendelhaven is certainly good because it ups his clock, but Todd is almost certainly going to need an additional land at least, if not, you know, another land or two.
Shiho is going to go ahead and end step Brainstorm. Just wants to see more cards. He did get a Terminus that he's floating on top of the deck right now, and just going to take this opportunity to Swords away the Glistener Elf.
Yeah, and I like that. Just kind of preserve your life total, or rather, you know, your infect, however you want to refer to that.
And he goes for Sensei's Divining Top, but Todd is going to fight here. And that seems like it should be expected. A pretty big card that you, the kind of card you don't want to let Miracles ever have. Todd does not hit the second land, though, replaces his Glistener Elf and passes back the turn.
Yeah, I mean, forcing Sensei's Divining Top might not feel very good, but like I said, if Todd is expecting this game to go late, that top is going to give Chihoy a huge advantage.
Yeah, Chiho had the Terminus on top. Wins goes ahead and takes care of that Glistener Elf, puts it on the bottom of the deck. And now at 3 lands, Chiho gets to keep playing, whereas Todd is still just sitting on a Pendelhaven. You see a Brainstorm. He finds a fetch land. It also finds that counterbalance. Chiho, with the fetch land and the counterbalance, can get the second blue and get counterbalanced up. He doesn't have a top to go with it yet, so there's still a decent amount of hope for Todd there, but things are bad.
Yeah, but Chihoy has enough cheap spells in his deck between Swords of Plowshares, Brainstorm, Sensei's Divining Top, a couple Spell Pierces, where he might just naturally counterbalance a lot of Todd's spells.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things you're talking about with counterbalance, is that while a lot of times people view it as a lock piece, right? Counterbalance plus Divining Top, and I can lock my opponent out of the game. You can also just play it as this incidental counter spell card. You know, it's not unreasonable to just have counterbalance plus top counter some things and not everything.
Yeah, I think if you're expecting counterbalance to fully lock your opponent out of the game, you're expecting too much out of the card. You should use it as a card that might counter the first spell they play. So like right now, if Chihoy were to play the counterbalance, maybe you would get a spell for free, and then maybe he finds a top, and then it just means that Todd basically can't cast spells for fear of them getting countered. But I would not put too much stock on it literally stopping them from playing spells.
So he's going to go ahead and Vendilion Click Todd. I'm not sure he's actually going to take anything here, as Todd's still stuck on one land, but he does see 4 blue cards. It's Blighted Agent, Daze, Brainstorm, and then he has the Vines of Astwood and Invigorate. So a lot of the pieces you need for a real quick kill, but no more lands. Chihoy writes it down and doesn't want to let Todd have another card.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Todd's in a position where on that turn he can't even play a spell. So, you know, his cards might be good, right? But you could get him closer to actually having lands.
Chihoy then took his own turn to make a counterbalance, passes back to Todd. Todd finally does hit his second land. It's a fetch land, so he now has both colors mana online. It's going to have a lot of lost ground to make up for, though. Looking at his hand, you have to think he's going to try to start with a Blighted Agent or something, or to get a creature in play so he can start playing these pump spells.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's the case, too. And right now he's trying to resolve one of those and actually race this Vendilion Click. But a few turns down the line, we might see Todd play a Brainstorm, trying to dig for a fetch land, fix his hand a little bit, get rid of that Daze that both Chihoy knows about and isn't going to be very effective considering that Chihoy has plenty of mana.
Yeah, he tries to blind counterbalance that Blighted Agent, but his top card is a fetch land, so Blighted Agent does resolve. Remember, Todd does have 2 green spells. He has Vines and Invigorate right now, so Chihoy has to be a little concerned about this.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it doesn't take much for this Infect deck to kill you, right? And that's part of the reason that it makes it so potent.
And what Chihoy does is end step there, he Karakas to bounce his own Vendilion Click so that he can Pyroclasm away this Blighted Agent and not have to worry about losing his own Vendilion Click.
Yeah, and Todd could have used Invigorate there to try and save his creature, but I like what Todd did. He has a backup creature in his hand, and he kind of needs that Invigorate to actually finish off Chihoy, probably.
Todd plays Brainstorm. Can Chihoy blind counter it? The answer is no. And Todd, now with a slew of lands, he drew a fetch land for the turn there. And off his Brainstorm, he gets a Tropical and a Ink Moth, as long as it's a Taxian Probe.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Todd almost certainly wants to play the fetch land this turn to shuffle away the cards that he doesn't need off this Brainstorm, the ones that he's going to put back so he doesn't draw them again. But past that, drawing Inkmoth Nexus is really nice. Todd has all the mana that he could ever want, I think, plus Inkmoth doubles as an additional threat.
Yeah. Of note, Todd so he put away the Tropical Island, and he also he kept a Vines of Bastard. He put away
the Days.
He put away the Days. And it's kind of interesting, right? So Chihoi saw Todd's hand and knows there might be a Daze here, and I feel like the threat of Daze is almost as good as having a Daze. Like Chihoi, he might still get Chihoi to play around a Daze and actually doesn't have to keep the card to do it.
Right. I mean, if you're in Chihoi's spot, I think, okay, you saw the Daze, right? But Todd just cast a Brainstorm, and Todd knows that Chihoi knows that Todd has the Daze, so
Decent chance he shuffled it away.
Yeah, it's pretty likely, especially since Chihoi has 5 mana, that he just shuffled that away. But he also has to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, Todd could probably assume that Chihoi is going to assume that, right? So it's a little bit of mind games going on here.
Well, like right here, Chihoi could be end step, like he could end step Vendilion Click, right? He has just enough mana to recast that guy.
Right.
But all right, you know, do you want to call Todd on the Daze bluff?
It all depends on whether or not you think you need to do that. You know, are you under a bunch of pressure? Do you have no other option other than to walk into Daze?
Right, and I think that's the benefit here, is that Chihoi may not end step the V-Click, and that's where, like, Todd having the Daze at some point just gained him some value there.
And that's exactly what we see.
Yeah, he didn't want to play around a possible Daze, so Todd got to shuffle away the Daze and have the Daze at the same time.
Right. But, I mean, Chihoi knew what was in his hand. He knew what was coming up on top, and he knew that that mana was basically going to be unused on his turn, so he can afford to play around the Daze, and it's not a big deal.
So gets to look again. This time we have Invigorate, Jataxian Probe, Vines, and Inkmoth.
Yeah, and Chihoi's just trying to clear the way with his main phase Vendilion Click to actually resolve the Swords to Plowshares on Blighted Agent and make sure it actually resolves. Because he knows that Todd is sitting on 2 pump spells, and he doesn't have a lot of interaction with what Todd has going on. So as long as he can remove the creatures, he'll probably be in a good spot.
Right, do you think right here we're just going to see the main phase Swords?
Yes, almost certainly.
And agreed, and that's what's going to happen. Second Blighted Agent is now gone as well. Todd has 1 creature left to deal with, and that's a pretty good one. It's going to be the Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah, I mean, Chihoi has Vendilion Click if he just wants to trade, and he also has Karakas to just keep bouncing, blocking with the Vendilion Click and returning it to his own hand.
Yeah.
So Chihoi can deal with it right now any number of ways. If Todd wanted to, he could force the issue and Vines the Vendilion Click when Chihoi went to Karakas it, if he wanted to force the trade.
If you wanted to get the, sure, if you wanted to get the Vendilion Click. Yeah, Vines, unlike a lot of the newer cards of that effect, can target your opponent's creature.
Yeah.
See Chihoi hitting with 3 for 3 with the Vendilion Click and just sitting back, passing the turn. Todd with land number 5 now. Did play Inkmoth. And outside of Berserk, none of the pump spells that Blue Green Influx play actually give the creature trample, right? So
right.
That chump block and bounce play that you can do with Karakas should hold off 1 creature.
Yeah, it should. I mean, Todd's plan to get around that is either with Berserk or attacking with 2 creatures.
So here's a possible kill. We see Inkmoth coming in. Todd does have 9 points of pump if you count the Pendelhaven.
With a Force of Will, no less.
And the blue card?
And the blue card. He has the Cataxian Probe.
And this is going to happen. Chihoi may have made a bit of a misstep here. We'll see Vendilion Click is going to get forced by Todd. And I think we're looking at game here. We see, pumping Inkmoth with for 2, finds it for 4, up to 6.
Todd is going for it.
Does Chihoi have the force, have the other Swords to Plowshares? No, he doesn't. Invigorate it to 10. Chihoi, did Chihoi know the top card of his deck?
He counterbalanced for the Force.
Okay. And what was on top of his deck?
I forget, but I believe, it was the other Karakas. That's what it was.
All right.
Yeah, so he couldn't stop
he
Todd.
Couldn't stop it. So this is, and such the strength of the Infect deck is Todd Anderson wins 2-0.